Alright guys, Chris Kugler here, and we are going to be working on some of our UI today. So in the last few parts I've been putting together some stuff around skill usage, unlocking skills, equipping skills, and things of that nature, but I don't have any screens right now for unlocking skills to be used by the player and equipping those skills for two button combinations to be used in battle and on the overworld. So today, I think I'm going to take a crack at one of these. I haven't quite decided which one. So think about that while I'm kind of setting up the basics for this. So first off, over here in my scene in Unity, I'm going to create a new canvas. And I'm creating a separate canvas for this instead of using one of my existing ones because I want to keep my existing canvas as just a on-screen HUD thing. And I've got a few other things in here that could technically be classified as their own screens, like the the pause screen really just pauses the game and pushes a little message saying paused. But and that actually might end up getting replaced with the interface that I'm going to be interacting with the player's statuses and equipable skills and stuff like that. But the other thing here would be the dialogue panel, which no, that could probably stay as a HUD because of just because it's a pop-up over the existing interface. The same with game over, which is really just saying, okay, we'll restart the battle or go back to the last save point or quit. So yeah, and actually none of these things are screens, quote unquote, so far. But since I'm going to start getting into having equip menus and things like that, this is really a pause the game, the interface takes up the majority of the screen, if not the entire screen, and controller focus moves to those elements. And really that's pretty much the big differentiating factor between HUD and a screen is the context in which you're using it. One implies that the player still has control over the action in the game, while the other needs to be dealt with by the player directly, and they can't really, in most scenarios, they can't keep playing the game while that screen is open. Now, there are games that don't feature pausing the action, and the screen will pop up over the action, you kind of just, you're still moving around behind the screen, but I don't think I'm going to use that. I'm not going to do that for this game. We're just going to pause the action and have the player deal with the screen itself. So I'm going to create a separate canvas for that reason, but for a secondary reason is that I'm going to put this into its own scene and load it additively when the game loads up in order to keep my initial load time down. I can load this pause stuff asynchronously because the player's going to get loaded into the game or start a new game, and they're going to be watching the opening of the game or appearing at the save point and walking around for a second. You got a second or two until they actually hit the button to pause the game and go to the menu. So that can keep the initial load time down without really hampering the player's ability to use all the features. So I'm going to call this my player customization canvas. Is everything in here going to be about player customization? I mean, for now it is, but I also might have like game options or saving and loading be accessible from this. Though I might separate the two things. You might pause the game and have a menu there that's more system level stuff like options, save, load, quit, and maybe pressing the select or back button on the controller will take you to the player's information. Yeah, so for the moment I'm just going to call this I'll just call it the player canvas, because there'll also be stuff that's not really customization, like the status, things like that. So, I need a new scripts folder. Yeah, I'll just call it the player menu. You know what? Yeah, I'm just going to call everything player menu. It's menus dealing with the player versus menus dealing with the system. And under here, we're going to have our new script. This is going to be equipped skills screen controller. Now I'm saying screen controller instead of just equipped skills controller because that's a little bit close to the equipped skills manager I have as part of the player class that deals with the actual gameplay interface for executing, or rather for managing the equipped skills and what shows up on the UI. And we're going to go ahead and add a second script here. Unlocked skills screen controller. Always better to be more descriptive than lacking in description. So we got our two controllers here, and I think I'm gonna start with the unlocked skills controller. Yeah, let's start with that. So my canvas here. I'm gonna create a new panel. Oops. There we go. Equipped skills and unlocked skills panel. I'm not going to focus too much on the UI styling right now, mainly just on the functionality, primarily because I haven't really thought too hard about the look and feel of the screens themselves. But I do want to implement the features, and I want them to be controllable via the mouse, but also I need them to be controllable via the controller. So we'll find out how to do the controller navigation pretty soon. I've experimented with this before, and it seemed to be pretty straightforward, just that you put elements on the screen in different positions, and if you're focused on a control up here and you have a control vertically below it, if you press down, it just goes to that. So it's not like a tab index form where you have a first focus, second focus, third focus, so on, and going next or previous just goes to the next and previous one. It actually looks at the direction of the next control relative to the control you're currently focused on. Now, how confirming and canceling out of things is going to work, I'm not 100% sure. In the input settings, there are buttons specifically labeled submit and cancel by default, and these default to joystick 0, which is the A button on the Xbox controller, the X button on the PlayStation 4 controller, and submit also has the spacebar and enter bar on the keyboard. Cancel automatically has joystick button 1, which is B or circle, depending on your controller of choice, or the escape key. So whether the UI manager picks those up automatically or not, I guess we'll find out. Similarly, how do we set the initially focused control on the screen? And I did notice earlier it's possible to have no controls selected, in which case controller navigation, and if it exists, keyboard navigation with the arrow keys doesn't register. So we'll need to have a default focused control in each of our screen controllers, explicitly set the control to be focused from the start, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, let's get started with our unlocked skills. So, whether I want a tree or a grid or something like that, I'm not quite clear on, but I do only have a handful of skills at the moment, and a few of them do have upgrade paths. So that creates a fairly simple way of whatchamacallit, a simple way of laying them out. So first and foremost, controls have an interface called isSelectable, it's just selectable, that defines whether or not it can be the receiver of focus on the UI. For ease of use, I think we just want to use a button for the moment. And what's going to happen is our button press is going to represent unlocking the skill, spending the experience points or the materials or whatever the cost is, activating the skill, and skills that are already unlocked are disabled when we load the screen. However, whereas skills that are available to be unlocked because they haven't already been unlocked and we also meet the prerequisites of unlocking them will be enabled. The question is, though, can we select a disabled button? And I think the answer to that's going to end up being no, which could really screw with the navigation. So we'll find out. So I'm going to do this from the top down. Now, in the actual game, I'm going to... 0, 0, 0. In the actual game, I will certainly be replacing the buttons with actual images. Yeah, so I have the highlight and the click occurs. That highlight color needs to be a little more pronounced for the sake of our viewing. Highlighted color. I'll tell you what, so our normal color I'll make this kind of a darker blue for controls that are not unlocked. And I think controls that are highlighted come to be a little bit lighter than that. Pressing it, I think we're just going to go ahead and actually I think I'll just keep that as the highlighted color. So I don't really care about having a transition for when we've pressed it. However, a activated skill, I'm going to make this like a light sea green. These colors are very ugly. This is very much just for demonstration purposes. Like I said, when it comes to a final game, you'll want to well, you might want it to be entirely text-based as far as the nodes that you're going to unlock. But for what I'm thinking of, I want pictures along with a text caption. So I keep dragging this and moving it around. Yeah, hopefully I'm not... Yeah, these positions all look fine, so that's okay. Keep forgetting to select my control there. So we have our bash skill, and we have our stun bash, which I'm going to go ahead and, actually I'm going to go ahead and fatten these up a little bit here. Bring these in. There we go. So we'll put him in the top left, anchored. Even up our number here, 50. And I'm going to go ahead and pop him out. Position Y, we'll put him a negative 60 down. We'll give him a 30 across the top. Yeah. Yeah, we'll give him a 30 across at the top level and a additional 30 on the X. And I'm going to bring my second guy under him. I should have a arrow between these guys or something like that to denote that these skills, that one is an upgrade from the other. Do I have anything like that already? We'll just have to remember that that's kind of the deal. We'll revert that back. And these are pretty damn small and also not very readable. So, I've got my prefab in here for my typical white colored text that has a shadow on it. It's a little easier to read. But I do still want the font size to increase a bit. There we go. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a problem. Let's just make sure the look is good. Actually, I do want another different pressed color. There we go. Create a player menu folder in our prefabs section, so I can go ahead and start creating a few prefabs from this. Replace our stun bash component. With our prefabricated instance. And there we are. Now then, what other passive skills do we have? And active skills, actually. So we also have dash. Do you remember that? And we got a few passive skills as well, right? So, skill repository. There we are. Yeah, so bash, stun bash, dash. We have attack 1, 2, and 3, which increases our normal attack power. Yeah, I'll add those in, and then when I come back here to add some more passive skills, we can go ahead and take care of adding some more items in here. Though by that time, hopefully, I'll have a more finalized look and feel to what I want. So I need 1, 2, 3 more of these, and this is going to be attack 1. attack 2, and attack 3. Additionally, passive skills will probably be in its own screen or tab or something like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and separate those over here. Make sure our spacing is even. Normally I would use a layout controller, but I don't really know how that's going to interact with the navigation. And I also want to explicitly control the position of my objects. Yeah, I wouldn't want to turn around and add a skill in the wrong place in my repository and find out that now my entire skill tree is out of order and things that are prerequisite to one another are just completely off-center from one another. So that's fine for the moment. So player menu canvas. So, player menu, screen, controller. And we're going to use this guy to hide and show the screens. So first off, when we hit select from in the game, we're going to pause the game and we're going to show this screen. And I'm not sure what screen we're going to start on, but for the sake of our test, we're just going to launch straight into the unlock skill screen. But for the moment, I need to be able to control access to those screens. So public game object, unlock skills, public game object, equip skills. And we're going to check to make sure these are bound up in the editor. And I keep doing this on accident. Not public, we want to serialize field private game object unlock skills. So if this dot unlock skills is not bound in the editor, then we're going to debug.log errors. And so now that that's all said and done, we need to check to see if the back button has been pressed. Do I have that bound to anything in Unity? Input. I don't remember doing that, but you never know. Yeah, I've got button start put in here. I need to look up my handy dandy Unity Xbox controller mapping. You know, from the Unity wiki. And I'm going to take a look here. Back button is number 6. Yeah. So button select is going to be button 6. I guess for the keyboard, we'll go with tab. Are these capitalized or lowercase? They're lowercase in these other ones. I'm going to assume tab is the appropriate keyword. So, yeah, so if input dot get button down button select, Alright, so if we're not active in the hierarchy, we need to set the time.timescale to 0. Well, actually, I have a pause game controller somewhere around here. Pause screen controller. On enable and on disable. Timescale equals 0 and player instance.handle pause true and false. On enable and disable. Yeah. So if we're not active in the hierarchy, we're pausing. This.gameObject.setActive to true. And also, I'm going to do a this.show unlock skills. so that should be good. Problem is, if I enable and disable this, then update's going to stop going. So that doesn't quite work. Well, the reality is I'll just leave this game object active the entire time. Oh no. No, I was good the first time. I just need to not do this update in here. I need to do this elsewhere. Isn't HUD Manager doing an update to fire off the pause screen? I mean, where the hell's this pause screen controller get shown from? Pause game controller. Oh, system. No. Yeah. Okay. So I just have this guy sitting here. That's right. I forgot I wrote a screen manager for showing and hiding screens. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna have a new class here, player menu screen navigation controller. And this is more or less going to be the same thing as what I have here. Except I'm not going to bother with this and this. And we're going to leave that alone for the moment. This guy is going to get the reverse treatment. No. Nope, nope, nope. Wait a second. Yeah. I don't need to register the screen, and I don't need a wake. I just need to use this dot screen manager dot. Pausing the game, we're going to show this screen player menu. Now, this canvas, well, first off, system, pause game controller. Player menu screen controller. I mean, quite frankly, that first. Because all this screen manager is really doing is changing the object to active or inactive and making sure that if the screen's already open, we're focusing it, that we're not already trying to open a screen that we already have open, that we can close all the screens that have been opened, we can close back to a certain point in the stack of screens, so on and so forth, like very typical screen management type stuff. Close all the screens when the object is destroyed. Yeah. A fairly rudimentary system. But it lets me reference screens by text name, so that's a helpful thing. And this pause screen, how do I do that? Yeah, it's inactive by default. Close on register. Yeah, because it's on start that this thing gets registered. I mean, really, true should be the default. It's quite fine, frankly, register screen doesn't, you know, that's not going to enable the screen on register. But by that token, if this is disabled by default, how does this even get registered? Because this awake or enable start shouldn't be happening until it's been activated. Whatever. We'll come back to that in a second. So, if I'm going to be using that, so player menu screen controller is just looking for this button press and toggling the screen, the whole canvas, active and inactive. The navigation is going to be dealing with which of these child screens to show. And I'm kind of imagining a navigation bar at the top and then using the triggers to switch between screens. And then using the stick and arrow buttons to navigate. But I don't really have that yet. So I think by default, so my player menu canvas, and I think the canvas is also going to have the navigator. And he's going to be given these children, game objects. Yeah, so that show screen and close screen is going to enable and disable this game object as a whole. So on enable, I'm going to show the unlock screen. And on disable, I'm going to hide all. Yeah, pause works, but the other guy doesn't. Oh, scan for child screens. Where's my screen manager at? So it's looping through and it's scanning everything for children's screens that exist in the scene. Yeah, so for each transform. So this has to be on this overlay HUD. Yeah, there he is, modal screen manager. Well, that doesn't, I mean, that's fine. Because quite frankly, if I just leave my screen as active here, it's clearly hitting that register because it's closing the screen immediately. So I'm fine with that for the moment, but I am going to I'm going to make note of that. But I also suppose since I'm gonna load this canvas in additively, it would never be a part of that initial scene load, and the awake would never pick that up. Especially since I'm probably going to be loading in the HUD additively as well. Yeah, so really that's actually not noteworthy. That's just me forgetting about code that I wrote a while ago. So let's move on from this part. So first off, why is my back button player menu, screen navigation, UI screen, pause game controller? And the answer is because I never wired up my my thingamabob. I never wired this player menu screen controller up. We've got the navigation. So if this guy's coming in, I can't count on system having this, and I actually am probably going to need to load this pause screen game controller in addition to the whatchamacallit. If I split the HUD off, I'm also going to take this guy with it. So when I do the load additive, it's going to be floating outside of system anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and create an empty game object, player menu controller, and he's just going to host this player menu screen controller. When I press back, it'll pop up, and when I press back a subsequent time, it doesn't do crap. So, what do I do? How do I do? How do I do things? Player menu screen controller, and I certainly did not set this .is screen showing to true or false. Silly me. Press the button, press the button. Oh wow. Boy, I'm just not on my game right now. That's what's happening. Yeah, there we go. So we got our screen popping in and out at about 1 hour here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this video and take a break, get my head back in the game. Maybe get a little coffee, a little caffeine injection. And I will see you guys next time. Later.